Hello, hello, and thank you so much for showing up. I know it's really hot. I just came in from New York City yesterday, and I was told it was going to be 30 degrees. Is this normal? Oh,
It is for 2 weeks in the summer every year. That's it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Well, thank you again for joining us. My name is Dr. Cecilia Donas. I'm the founder of 3 Standard Deviations. I focus on helping organizations and people figure out what to do about this AI thing. You can find me on my LinkedIn, What is a CMO to Do with AI? That's a newsletter, as well as my other Substack newsletter, Authentic Interactions. And with me today, I have Perla Bloom, Global Senior Comms Planning Manager at Expedia, working on innovation, ex-EA Games. She also has a newsletter on LinkedIn. Please sign up. Culture Meets What's Next. We also have Vanessa Gunares, EMEA Senior Marketing Manager at Abbott, bringing extensive experience in brand building across LATAM and EU in healthcare. All right, so the big question, authenticity and trust. I'm very curious, I'm not from this market. How many of us believe that authenticity matters now in the age of the internet? Oh, really? Okay, interesting. How many of us, no. If it's not real, does it even matter? Okay, cool. And with that, we're going to explore some of these ideas from these lovely ladies. And so, the first question, how do you define authenticity in the context of brand building, and why is it important for consumer trust?
Yeah, I think, we hear a lot about how people are interacting with marketing and with content these days. I think especially in kind of cultural content saturation, that people have like short attention spans, people that don't trust marketing at all. They think it's written by a robot, written by AI. Or, they just kind of don't want to hear marketing voices. They'd rather hear it from a creator. So I think authenticity for me is just being really clear on what the role of your brand is in the context of their world. Like, how are they interacting with their world, and how can your brand, above any other brand in the category, above any other category, help them experience that in the best way, essentially. Once you've nailed that, and once you're showing that off in every kind of activation, I think that's when you become more authentic. Like, no one wants to see a brand activation that is completely random, even if it is, incredible or it improves our experience. They kind of don't trust it, especially when it comes to the kind of the different technological levers that we have available to us. I think even if it's the more simple activation, they're more complicated. Their role, your role as a brand, and how you help interact with the world, that's what they need to see, and that's what makes it more authentic.
Yeah, I really agree with the consistency, right, that Perla is mentioning. So if you are consistent to your brand values, your brand positioning, right, it's not about being purpose-driven or like human-led. It's not about that. It's really bringing that consistency across your touch points. And I think there are brilliant brands that do that. So a good example is Tony Chocolonely, right, that they have these unequal chocolate chunks, right? Because they stand for the inequality in the supply chain. So when you are consistent about your brand values and positioning, you take these chances really, and sometimes for some brands might really cost them. It might be more expensive for them to produce the chocolates that way, but they are so, true to their brand values that they really deliver that. Now, my only advice would be don't overdo it. Once you get that right, deliver that, because you might get distracted from what really matters in brand building, which is good segmentation, good targeting, clear positioning, delivered to the highest level that you can in mental availability and physical availability.
That's so interesting, because I feel like purpose is also really big, which is what you were kind of describing with Tony's, that purpose is kind of also something that breathes life into authenticity. If you actually seem like you're taking a stand in a social issue in society, especially as we hear younger people like to buy into brands that have more social purpose. So I guess that's also, a kind of way of doing that, which is cool.
So I love the idea of consistency. How many of us come from legacy brands? So you've been around for a bit of a while, maybe over 20, 30 years. Okay, thank you. How many of us are coming from newer brands? Maybe you've only been around 10, 15 years, even less. Okay, Thank you for participating. So I'm very curious. When we're thinking about consistency and purpose and trying to bring that authenticity for brands, what advice would you have for a legacy brand as opposed to maybe a newer brand?
I think keeping up to date with what your audience cares about. You know, it's not so much always repositioning the brand, but also kind of tightening up on what your positioning might mean in the current context of the world. I think that because I've worked with for a few legacy brands now, and I've reframed or it wasn't a full repositioning, but rather what is our positioning and what do we stand for mean for now, and how does that then translate into different kind of marketing communications. So I'd say stick to who you are, stick with your kind of brand icons, don't get lose sight of that, but maybe remix them so that they kind of make more sense in the context of today.
Yeah, and I think like sometimes as marketers we get in the way of that, right? We want to refresh, to make something new. I think
Have our own stamp
this year
on it.
we had like the Jaguar example, right? All over, and a lot of comments. They completely lost their distinctive assets, things that really takes time to build. So if you were working in a legacy brand, really understand like what is that you need to do, like from all the strategy in place. If you need to change the strategy, then you change positioning and you deliver through the brand distinctive assets. But I think most of the brands won't need that, right? There are other levers that you need to pull to really make a difference. So and having your diagnostics right will make the biggest difference rather than just changing for the sake of it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Definitely.
I love that. That's a very key message. Don't change just because you can. All right. So what does creativity mean to you as a brand leader, and how does it influence your approach to building connections with consumers?
I think creativity helps you to deliver one of the rules of how you grow brands, right? Which is the mental availability, right? So if you do that right, you tap into a human truth, an insight that brings attention to your brand, and then you brand strongly and early in that process. So through your distinctive brand assets that, you know, it's not only the logo, it's the colors, it's the typography, it's the icons that you have, you connect with that human truth, and you do that consistently over time. So you do that again and again and again, and that's how you build memory.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you can have all the data in the world and all the kind of audience segmentation and testing and test results and all the rest of it, but without creativity, you're not connecting with people, and you need to have that as the bridge to the execution. And then I would say that making it come to life in different channels by understanding people's different mindset in those channels when they are on different platforms and doing different things, you should be speaking to them in an adapted way. I think building an ecosystem by bringing creativity to life in that way is what's actually ultimately going to connect emotionally, obviously based on data, etc. But I think data on its own can't connect with people. Creativity is what emotionally connects with people and makes people care.
So I love that. Data on its own is not going to connect you to consumers. It's really the creativity and emotionality that connects you to consumers. So I'm curious, what are some creative challenges brands face when balancing the familiar with the need to evolve?
Do you want me to go? Do you want to go?
Well, I think there are a lot of challenges. You certainly would mention a lot of them, Perla. But I think the latest reports that I saw, it was made available from Cannes 2025 by Mark Ritson. The marketers are barriers for the creativity. And in this report that it's called the creative dividend, they connect profit growth with creativity. So that's the power of that. But in this report, they served a lot of marketers, and 41% of them saw creativity as a risk. And 40% of them didn't have a clear strategy. So I think, you know, these are the biggest things that at the moment we need to create. So more confident marketers that knows the value of creativity, that really convinces the leadership team and changes organizational culture when we need to deliver on that, because it can be really powerful.
Yeah. I completely agree with everything you just said. I'm on the innovation kind of track at Expedia Group, so I work on all of our innovative partnerships, so I can draw into like experience I'm having every day. And similar to what you said about leadership, I think pitching a new kind of innovation, something that we've never done before, is in and of itself difficult because you're having to basically prove its worth both short term and long term, and it's never been done before. That's why it's called innovation. So being able to draw in different KPIs or different external case studies of where it's done well, and really, and also maybe some in another place in like the category that they've done it in a similar way, you can kind of draw things like that. I'm forever kind of building decks showing not only the long-term value of something, because I think it's very easy and a bit of a cop-out to say that a brand building kind of activation is only going to be useful in 2 years' time. Like, you're only going to see the results in 2 years' time. Like, that's not going to cut it, especially for leaders, for shareholders, and what have you. It needs to basically work now. So proving out that it can work now and in the long term is really important. I'd also say adopting a culture of failure is really important. I think that's been said a lot of times before, so I'll explain like how I think you can actually do that. And I think that's through a real testing strategy, like integrating testing between now and what your North Star of that big innovation is that you want to do for your business. What are those small increments that you need to test? What are the things that you need to know in order to be able to put that together and build that final kind of vision? I think it's easy when you do that sometimes to maybe be in a bit of like a bottoms-up optimization element, and you can get stuck in that. So I would advise that you kind of keep building on the levers versus just consistently, optimizing what you're already doing. And I think that in and of itself kind of, it puts forward a failure mindset and a culture to be able to do creative innovation, because we feel like we're all in it together. We feel like we've all kind of come together, we've drawn the testing strategy, and it's no one person's fault. And in that way, I think that you can innovate. It's slow, but it works.
So I love how you're creating that psychological safety around the testing scenarios and research agenda so you can build forward. As a bridge to talk about emerging technologies, some firms choose to be, they try to take first mover advantage. So I will do it first, and therefore I will be the most successful. And some firms will choose to be fast followers. And so let somebody else learn the lesson. I'll move very quickly.
That's a very good idea.
So I'm curious, from your experience, which way to go?
I don't think it matters if somebody in your category has done it first. I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier when it comes to what is people's relationship with the category that you're in, and how does your brand stand out? I think it doesn't matter if they do it first, you just do it better. And to your point, you learn from the mistakes. And there are plenty of brands in the same category doing very similar things, but the ones that stand out are the ones that are doing it culture first and really focusing on what their audience actually needs and adding richness to it in the context of their brand.
I love it.
And technology, I think we can't forget, is a means, right? Not an end in itself. Yeah. So if you were really able to connect like what technology can do for you and what you really need to do from a brand point of view, I think that's where you get the most of it. And there are some very interesting areas at the moment that are developing faster. Like, for example, the research is an insight, right? So before you would take months to really grasp an insight that it's relevant for your audience, and now you tap into wider databases that can be your own or external to really bring that to life much faster. Or even like internal processes, right? Sometimes you need to look internally. Maybe you have internal processes that are stopping your marketers from doing what they need to do because they are trapped into this endless, bureaucracy that happens in organization, that technology and AI could help us get further.
Mm-hmm. I really like that. Great build. So now I'm curious, for all of you, should we be first movers? Should we be the first ones to do first? Be the innovators. Okay, I hear you. How about do it better? We should be fast followers. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. And with that, what are some considerations for brands when introducing new technologies to ensure the experience remains authentic and trustworthy?
I think number one rule is stick to your positioning, right? And make sure that across the touch points that you have and technologies that you use, you brand strongly and clearly, so you drive that, brand associations and memory that you need to create. And I think the other side of that is not only communication, but also product and services, right? So your purchase funnel, your purchase process, and the experience with your product and service will generate frictions. So if you know the barriers and the frictions that you need to overcome, then you go to technology. Technology might be the answer, the solution for it. And I think there is a brilliant case that I read about. It's an ONG that does crowdfunding. So they noticed that the projects that had better description were the ones that were collecting more funds. So they tapped into AI to help these people refine their wording to get, more funds, and it worked. And they continuously do that now. And so I think that's a great example of like a friction in the process. You getting technology in, easy to use, and the results of that are incredible.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Very good.
Brilliant. All right, we have a few minutes left, and I want to make sure we go into what I would consider the most interesting part of the conversation, looking to the future, because, of course, we have a crystal ball, and we can totally predict what's going to happen in the future. So how do you think creativity and emerging technology together will shape the way brands connect with consumers?
So I think with all of these kind of bits of like emerging technology, what we're doing is adding levers to our brand activations and the possibilities of what we can actually build and how we can creatively execute. I think, what's really important is not only to think about AI, also things like VR, things like AR, things that basically are going to revolutionize virtual experiences, real life experiences, and also how they're going to merge it all together. That's something that really excites me. I think what we're seeing at the moment, lots of really good examples are virtual realities. So basically in gaming, so these kind of open world games like Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite to an extent, we see Gucci Town, Nightland, all of these big kind of brand activations, and they're connecting with consumers that they'd never been able to before, and creating spaces for people that also intertwine real life and their bricks and mortar and virtual life. So IKEA are doing this really well. You can actually get a job as a 16-year-old on the IKEA floor on Roblox, which I think is fantastic, which obviously they get paid for it, and it's their real life kind of effect. And then also, I'm actually really interested in AR lenses. I think obviously they've not found like a proper use case for it, and no one likes to wear them. They look kind of silly. But the tech is there, and that's what's really interesting. Snap just announced a new AR lens that's coming out in 2026. Meta have got Orion and Hypernova lenses, one that's not even going to be linked to your phone. Like the technology and what's actually possible is going to be amazing. And I think us as marketers, what we're going to be able to do is find a real use case for it. And I think we're sleeping on entertainment brands as well. Disney are doing AR without the AR lens. They've got a product called Magic Bench, which is where people at parks are going to be able to interact with their favorite IP characters without even having to put on a pair of glasses. So I think that the key for AR lenses is going to be entertainment, but I just don't know how yet. And will we be wearing the silly glasses? I don't know. We'll see.
There. All right. Are there any final words of wisdom for our marketers regarding authenticity and creativity in this day and age?
I think my final thought is, get trained, right? Get to know your internal culture to see if there is, room for that, for really to strive for better in that sense.
Yeah.
Invest some money, or even yourself, like going in the field and seeing what's going on to bring these insights that are relevant to your audience, to bring that to your campaigns, and be prepared to really convince people in the leadership team to really fight for these investments and the need to do better, to be more creative and to stand out from the crowd.
For me, it's innovate through culture and your audience and who you are, and you'll be golden.
All right, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa and Perla. My name is Dr. Cecilia Donas, and thank you all for joining us today.